Before we start, viewers are strongly warned to exercise caution. The following is solely for educational and amusement purposes, and includes the exact words of Sean Diddy's federal courtroom testimony. According to Inner City Press, the Combams trial took place in a federal courtroom without any cameras, live feeds, or reporters taking pictures from the gallery. Hollywood as a whole was rocked by what was spoken behind those well-guarded doors. Foxx, one of the most renowned and talented actors of our day, had just taken the stand, and many in attendance said he wasn't acting. His hands shook, his voice cracked, and then he suddenly broke down in front of the jury, shouting and crying as he described what he witnessed a terrible night inside Sean Diddy Combs' mansion. Eyewitness accounts, precise paintings, and leaked court transcript notes portray a terrifying picture. The public saw Foxx as the self-assured, endearing, and unflappable performer. This man was troubled, and as his comments flowed forth, everyone in the courtroom froze. It wasn't simply what he observed how it was concealed, how everything appeared to be planned for protection, and how no one dared to speak out for years. Foxx's relationship with Sean Diddy Combs was widely known over the years. They frequently laughed together, joked around at award ceremony after parties, and even posed for photos that exuded wealth, power, and brotherhood. However, according to released documents from the first week of the federal court's proceedings, showing brotherhood was merely a facade, a meticulously constructed delusion that broke down the evening Jaime accepted an invitation to spend the we all wanted to be a part of the circle. So Jaime began his moving tale by describing the interaction at Diddy's notorious estate. Diddy's residence it seemed as though Jaime had entered a palace of power, where the music resided, transactions, and energy were abundant. However, based on his statements under pledge was that some gatherings were for initiation rather than enjoyment. That evening, Foxx described being escorted into a private wing of the mansion, following a night of excessive drinking and opulent relaxation. I noticed several individuals who weren't businessmen, producers, or artists appeared uneasy, and according to reports, he whispered, "They instructed me to stay to rest because Diddy had a surprise." He explained how the mood changed, the lights went down, the laughter subsided, and the attendees started to disperse into more intimate, smaller areas. One of Diddy's assistants reportedly guided inside the mansion. Foxx led me to a soundproofed theater where a video was already waiting. I was perplexed and didn't understand what was happening, but they explained, "This is where what Foxx said, next left him psychologically damaged for years. It was unlike anything I had ever seen, and I wasn't sure if it was planned or real, but I knew how I felt. I wanted to escape, but the doors were closed, so I got up and watched them say, 'Everyone somebody has been through this.'" His stomach fell. According to a reporter who talked with someone in the courtroom, Foxx reportedly paused, took a deep breath, and added, "I never wanted to see it, and I've spent each day since attempting to forget it." Transcripts show that the judge requested a 5-minute break so that Foxx could gather his calmness. Following the pause, Foxx went back to the witness stand with trembling hands and red eyes. The courtroom was still once more, and what transpired was characterized as a damning breakdown of Hollywood's greatest hidden secret, the safeguarding of power at any costs. Jaime recalled, "They gave me a glass of something that night when I tried to leave, saying it would help me relax. I recall Diddy staring at me icily as if he knew what I saw but didn't care, as if it was all part of the game. I didn't drink it. I just said I had to leave." The aftermath, according to Foxx, was what struck the courtroom the most, not the emotional harm. In the days that followed, calls began to come in, but they weren't threats exactly. Foxx testified that for him, the pushback began when he declined to accept their offer of a deal, an NDA wrapped in a check for 7 figures, and they reminded him to be silent and stay close. Years later, he saw a gradual drop in significant offers, inexplicable project funding delays, and the disappearance of producers who had once referred to him as a star. It was a quiet freeze-out. I watched careers disappear. People who asked questions just vanished from the conversation. "Not dead just because they asked them," he said in the hearing transcript, and I understood why. Obliterated. He continued by explaining how, over the years other famous people had confided in him, People who had gone through similar things but were too scared to talk about them. You think I'm alone? You think I'm brave? I'm just exhausted. A gasp is said to have sounded over the gallery when Foxx named 3 other famous performers, who he stated that they attended similar parties at that home. The names were omitted from the official court record, although some sources have indicated that one of them was a Grammy-winning rapper and another a Foxx. The third actress and well-known late-night host concluded this portion of his statement by stating, "We wear smiles, suits, and sunglasses." But beneath it, the tone of the courtroom darkened as Jaime Foxx moved forward to explain the situation. Some things you can't unsee are broken. The most terrifying aspect of his experience was not just what he witnessed that evening in Diddy's estate, but also what he discovered afterwards. What started out as an unsettling and bizarre encounter turned into something more profound, more calculating, and much more dangerous than he had ever thought. This was about systematic control, leverage, and blackmail, not just a weird party or a few off-color events. As he discussed the presence of a secret archive, a purported vault of digital recordings kept on a private encrypted server, his tone changed from one of emotion to one of analysis. He hadn't personally visited the chamber, but he said that a number of insiders, including a previous house manager, and 2 security officers who had since vanished from the property, the public acknowledged its presence and characterized it as a surveillance nerve center with locked cabinets, hard drives, and monitors that were only accessible by a few. Kept. Everything. Jaime continued, pausing to allow the words to sink in. It wasn't just videos of people having a good time. They also recorded things they knew no one wanted to see, and they did it without permission. People didn't realize that there were cameras everywhere, some in restrooms, others in hallways, and some in bedrooms. But you would have thought it was simply a crazy night. He clarified that the collection wasn't merely a pastime or trophy room, but rather, in his words, a currency of secrets. Jaime said that the collection included footage of athletes, politicians, CEOs, and celebrities. Many of them were unaware that they had been captured on camera in intimate poses, while others were intoxicated and participated in actions that could only be characterized as unsettling or non-consensual. It wasn't merely Foxx recalled an incident a few months after his tour of the Mansion A. He stated that it was about owning people and ensuring that no one ever went against them. Parcel showed up at his production office with his name written in a sharp black marker, no return address, and a flash drive with a grainy, distorted film of the theater where Jaime had been. His face and emotions were captured on hidden cameras that evening. The perspective made it obvious that it wasn't recorded with his knowledge. There was only his expression as he watched whatever was playing on the Fox, claimed to have stared at the dark screen with the words, "Just remember." That was the drive's last frame. He appeared on the screen for more than an hour, and I thought that was a warning because he informed me, "We see you, we own your silence." And I'll be honest after that, I didn't say anything because I wasn't sure who to believe. Every time I saw a report about someone else being charged or inexplicably leaving the industry, he said that these archives had been utilized as a weapon on several occasions to thwart litigation, quiet accusers, and even compel endorsements or public backing from some of the individuals you see standing up for Diddy. Jaime stated, aren't doing it because they like him. Rather, they're standing up for him because they're terrified because they don't want their video to be seen. One of the most incriminating parts of the testimony was when Jaime described a late-night call he got from a she was crying and said she had gotten a video. The famous actress who had also been at the estate was not named in court, but he characterized her as someone America considered a sweetie, seeing herself passed out while someone she didn't recognize was hovering over her. She was in a panic, unsure of whether it had progressed or whether anyone would believe her, and I didn't know what to tell her, Foxx acknowledged. The judge, apparently worried about the emotional toll being taken on Foxx, who had become more and more, Jaime made one final, terrifying remark before leaving the stand for a break. They don't just collect secrets. They manufacture silence. They build a cage, composed of your darkest moments, and then they have the key. By this time, the courtroom atmosphere had completely changed, and it wasn't simply about one man's sins, it was about the potential for a vast system based on control, terror, and manipulation. As Jaime continued, it became increasingly evident that Diddy's empire, if real, was more than just music or economic transactions. It was founded on leverage. the kind that not only destroys careers but also takes lives. After a brief break, court resumed and Jaime Foxx took the stand once more. Clearly scared but more determined than ever, he described how two guys approached him outside a restaurant in the courtroom weeks after he received the flash drive, leaving the room in stunned silence. Los Angeles. Clad as bodyguards or security, they didn't reveal who they were. One just gave him a phone, said he wanted to talk, and moved aside. Diddy was on the other end of the queue. Although Diddy didn't outright threaten Jaime, his cool-headed words, "I hope you're not planning on saying anything you'll regret, Maya," man, chilled him to the bone. "You're a legend, Jamie. Don't lose that over something that isn't your business," Diddy allegedly stated. That's the kind of thing that can mess up legacies. It wasn't just the words. It was the suggestion that Diddy was watching him and could contact him at any time or place. Jaime stated that following he changed his phone, canceled engagements, and started using private security after he noticed that he was always looking over his shoulder. He claimed he thought it was no accident because it was a warning shot, he said, when a story that implied Jaime was involved in a scandal that he insisted was made up appeared in a gossip magazine soon after this encounter. He seemed to be saying, "To me, we can fabricate a fiction about you just as easily as we can dismantle you with the truth." Jaime described in court how Diddy's world was about monitoring, silence, and power, not just fame and fortune. He explained how partygoers were frequently asked to turn in their phones for privacy-related concerns. However, Jaime stated that given what he had gone through, he thought those phones were cloned. He said insiders informed him that voicemails, contacts, and messages were copied. Jaime stated in an archival statement, "People believe the danger was in what they did at those events, but the true danger was in what they took from you, your voice, your data, fear." NDAs signed by scores of well-known guests who attended parties at Diddy's mansions were shown by a prosecution. These forms were more forceful than usual confidentiality agreements, with some containing provisions cautioning against discussing unpleasant experiences or stories in public. Jaime attested to the fact that he was invited to sign a similar document, but he declined, stating that this was the moment when everything changed. His brand endorsement started to falter, and a movie he was working on was like I became radioactive overnight, Jaime said, after being abruptly dumped by its distributor studios who stopped receiving calls. "I wasn't blacklisted for doing something wrong. I was blacklisted for refusing to comply." The court became more and more enthralled and appalled, as Jaime went deeper into what he referred to as the mansion's mechanics, and started up by describing particular rooms that he had been seen while spending the night at Diddy's estate. These rooms weren't listed on but Jaime said this wasn't a tour, recalling being escorted down a hallway behind a bookcase that led to a surveillance control room manned by two silent men who never looked at him. He stated that one of the men showed him a monitor with feeds from bedrooms, spas, and private lounges across the home, but I didn't ask to see anything because it felt like an intimidation tactic. But they wanted me to know that they had everything, Jaime explained. When he inquired who had access to the tapes, the answer was straightforward: only him, referring to Diddy. Jaime found it strange when he was informed later that evening that his bedroom was down a separate hallway from the other guests' accommodations. The room was luxurious but chilly, with no windows or cameras. Evident in the corners, I didn't feel like a guest. Jaime claimed that I felt like a suspect in an interrogation room. He attempted to go to sleep but was unable to do so at around 2 a.m. He heard faint music and laughter, and when he came outside, he saw a group of people in robes making their way down the corridor to the theater area, with Jaime following at a distance, and saw what he could only characterize as a ceremonial assembly. Drinks were being served to guests, some of whom were blindfolded, while others were being videotaped. Diddy was in the middle of the room, planning, the presence of handlers, individuals who weren't guests but facilitators, who kept tabs on everyone and made sure the cameras rolled and whispered in, was what most bothered Jaime. When the evening concluded, Jaime returned to his room but discovered the door was locked. He thought they weren't merely shooting. They were recording behavior for leverage. Everything was undamaged inside the jar, with the exception of a picture of him and Diddy from years ago that was now resting on the nightstand. He insisted that it had never been there before, and there was a scribbled letter on the back. Brotherhood, During his last day of evidence, Jaime's emotional armor completely collapsed. His voice cracked as he recounted an FBI agent who visited him months later and asked obscurity, and had allegedly been looking into Diddy for years. The agent contacted Jaime informally, claiming that there were more than 30 sealed allegations about Diddy and his colleagues' wrongdoing, trafficking, and extortion, but none had advanced past grand juries. Jaime questioned why the agent allegedly stated he safeguarded high-ranking contacts in unexpected places. At that point, Jaime revealed the most shocking revelation of the at least one of Diddy's exclusive fundraisers included surveillance tapes, which he said the agent informed him were sealed documents that implicated a former U.S. president, were thought to have been recorded. Jaime stated that he was unsure if anything unlawful had occurred, but that it was no accident that powerful people had avoided being associated with. According to the probe, Jaime claimed the agent forewarned him that going public would put him up against the entire system, not just Diddy. With tears running down his cheeks, he concluded his statement by begging for justice and for the general public to realize that this isn't about retaliation, but rather about putting an end to something that has been. I want the world to know that I told the truth if something were to happen to me after this, because this is greater than music and bigger than myself. Jamie Foxx continued in his testimony. He described a terrifying night during his visit that he dubbed the blackout incident. He explained that it wasn't merely a metaphor, explaining how at roughly 2 a.m., Jaime initially believed there was a power failure when the entire estate suddenly went dark. But the timing seemed strange. The music had stopped suddenly. The hallway lights had blinking twice, and then there was stillness. He recalled entering the hallway, where the air had grown chilly due to a tension that encircled the home like a storm, not simply the air conditioner. Everyone paused, Jaime recalled, and the atmosphere changed. No one was talking or joking as if they had experienced this before. A tall man in a suit, whom Jaime was perplexed and uneasy when someone who was characterized as being too somber for a party, walked out of one of the rooms and stated, "No phones, no cameras, everyone back inside." Went back to his room, but his curiosity overcame him, and he slipped down the hallway and peered through a cracked door where odd noises came from inside, including metallic clanging and muttering. Then there was a scream, and a male who was muffled. He wouldn't identify the person he saw, but he did affirm that it wasn't a consenting party game. He observed moving individuals and shadows standing in. He described a woman walking quietly through the room with a small notebook jotting something down. Then she made eye contact with him. The circle and what appeared to be someone being confined. She simply grinned and closed the door in his face through the gap in the door without screaming or warning anyone. Jaime fell back in shock. And that's when I knew he told the jury that this wasn't a house. When Jaime recalled the latter portion of his stay, the upstairs level that was completely off, his voice cracked. This was a theater, a stage where individuals were turned into props. Boundaries. Guests were instructed not to go upstairs until invited at the party. But Jaime opened the wrong door in an attempt to find a lavatory and avoid a mob in the hallway, landing him at the... He swore he saw 2 people at the top of the stairs whispering, he said, and the bottom of a staircase was dimly lit with red emergency bulbs and a faint hum came from above. The man asked icily, "You lost?" Jaime said she was sorry and turned around, but not before catching a glimpse of what appeared to be. He cynically remarked, "I knew that's where they kept the good stuff," referring to the hallway's heavy black curtain or sheet and the faint white light blinking beneath it. Good like fun, good like evidence, good like secrets control. Later, a friend informed him that the meetings took place upstairs. Jaime inquired, "What type of meetings?" He was troubled. For years by the comment, the kind where people give up something to get something. As the courthouse approached the conclusion of, during Jamie Foxx's testimony, the prosecution posed the much-anticipated question, "Why didn't you come forward earlier?" Jaime took a big breath, looked down and said, "I was afraid, not for my career. Forget that I was afraid for my life, for my family, or for anyone near me." You have no idea how much of an impact this man has. It's not just music, it's quiet. He makes individuals vanish, if not physically, then from the industry's importance and protection, He described a number of incidents over the years where anyone who attempted to expose or confront Diddy were immediately, he stated, "They don't need to kill you, they just erase you." But as the story started to mount up, he said, "You get iced out." Consequences include lawsuits, shutdowns, surveillance, or mysterious firings. Jaime knew it was time to end the federal inquiry once Cassie's testimony was leaked by the staff. "If I remained silent, I would have been complicit, and I couldn't bear that." Furthermore, his last remarks in court stunned everyone. Everyone believes that Hollywood is based on dreams, yet in reality, it's constructed on a foundation of secrets, and had gathered more secrets than everybody else. To hope that sharing mine will help break, regardless of the magic he cast on all of the court declared a break for us, and as Jaime returned to his reporter's seat, observed that some jurors even dabbed at their emotions. From their gazes, the quiet that following wasn't limited to the court, was the kind of reckoning silence that occurs when a famous person's world falls apart, broad and open, and there is nowhere left for the truth to hide.